Without any other words, we'll bring out the man of the night, our brother, Kwame Ture.
Thank you. Organization. We thank you very, very much. As a young man working for the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, when I graduated from Howard University, I was paid $9.64 a week when we got the money. And most of the time we did not get the money. And of course there we're working with the very poorest people that we had, the peasants, the sharecroppers. But I knew from an early age when we would go into a house where nobody there knew us, in some little body shack, they just knew that we were freedom fighters, and we'd get in there about 2 o'clock in the morning, the people would get out of their best beds, bring out their best sheets and their best grandmother quilts and give it to us. So I've known from the time I was small that once you're revolutionary and you struggle for the people, you will lack nothing because the people will give you everything. Everything. So we want to thank you for demonstrating this, for reaffirming us. We have very little time, and we want really to concentrate our time on how we are to advance the struggle as a people. Of course, we know that history is made only by the masses of the people. They are the only makers of history. If we were to look at the history of Africans just in America, we would see this clearly. It is only when the masses come into the movement takes on mass proportions, that we advance. Of course, we look very carefully at our people, and especially at our culture. If you look carefully at us as a people, we act together, but we do not think together. This is one of our greatest weaknesses. But this acting together takes on great proportions. I am a revolutionary, and unlike Dr. Martin Luther King, my dreams are the dreams of urban rebellions. That's the stuff they're made of. And I know from scientific work that were we to plan a rebellion in a given city, let's say Washington, D.C., we would need at least 75 cadres, honest sisters and brothers, ready to give their lives at the drop of hat for the people, ready to sacrifice everything, and probably over a period of 18 months before you can really bring off a rebellion. I know this is just my job. But our people can raise up a rebellion without the slightest planning, without the slightest forethought, and put the police and the army at bay at will. When the policemen were freed in California over Rodney King, without thought, without planning, without talking, in action, everybody rose up and went to a righteous rebellion against police terrorism. This we act together. But since we do not think together, once this action spins itself out, we sit down for 20 years. Were we to go back to the same Watts, we would see in 1965, Watts had one of the first rebellions in the 1960s in this country. And if we were to compare 1965 with 1996, there's only one difference. In 1996, the rebellion was quantitatively greater, but there were no qualitative improvements at all. We know that in order to have quality, you must have quantity. But we know you get quality by critically organizing quantity. And this is the error we make as a people. We do not critically organize our quantity to make qualitative results. In the 1996, they didn't even get a poverty program. In 1965, at least, there were poverty programs. The need then for us to think together is crucial. We can even look at ourselves as a people. When we ask ourselves where we come from, what our origins, even though we're one, we get a million answers. I'm black, I'm American, I'm human, I'm African American, I'm colored, maybe I'm Negro. All of this from the same people. All of this from the same people. Unless we have a clear recognition of our origins and our history, it's impossible for us to understand the present, let alone map out the future, since we're all going in different ways. The All-African People's Revolutionary Party has taken upon its shoulders the task of organizing the masses of our people. This is a task from which we will not run. It is not an easy task, it is a difficult task, but we're revolutionaries. We don't run to the easy, we run to the difficult. Any conscious woman knows that if you run to easy problems, you will not grow. It is only when you confront difficult problems, overcome these problems, that your confidence grows, preparing you to overcome any problem. Any problem. We've taken on the task of organizing the masses of our people. To organize them, we must think together. Therefore, for us, the question of ideology becomes supreme. This ideology must come from the culture of our people, must come from it. We have seen what ideologies not coming from our culture, trying to organize our people, have done in this country. It's wreaked havoc on them. Some ideologies came to tell our people that you can fight, but before you fight, you must get rid of God. That one will never work. Not with these Africans. Simply because they are so oppressed that they use everything to liberate them, starting with their religion. And the same religion brought by the slave master to enslave us is the same religion that Denmark Vesey uses to cut off the heads of the slave masters in righteous rebellion. The same religion that the segregationists used to try and keep us segregated was the same religion that Martin Luther King used, singing freedom songs, marching against dogs and hoses to break down segregation. We say carefully here that this ideology must come from our culture. We know that it is only the masses that make history, and our people make history. Of course, sometimes we get confused. The history books here, in confusing our conceptions, will have us think that we make history when one African becomes the first this or that. So in the history book you read, oh, the first president of this association was an African. The first doctor to come to this hospital was the first African doctor. The first African to do this. The first African astronaut. The first African. It makes it appear as if our history is a history of individual advancement into the capitalist system. This is not history. History is made by an oppressed people only in fighting against their oppressor. This is the only way you make history. Only way. Therefore, if you want the history of our people in America, we give it to you in one sentence. They have gone from burning plantations to burning cities. If they don't get free, they're going to burn a nation. But the American capitalist system is weaker today than it's ever been before. All we need is the slightest organization and we can bring this monster down. We are going to bring down the capitalist system whether we are conscious or unconscious. Of course, we need conscious people, but we tell the capitalist system, even if you stifle the conscience in our community, as Africa's our mother, unconsciously, these Africans will burn a nation, but they are going to be free. Absolutely free. The capitalist system is weak, we say. America is more ripe for revolution today than it's ever been. It's more ripe for revolution today than it's been in the 1960s. Only one example will make this clear for us. In the 1960s, the right wing in this country supported the government. They wanted to maintain the status quo. Every time we moved, the government unleashed them against us. You would find workers in the street beating down students against Vietnam. You find right-wing groups talking, but today the right wing have changed their policy. They have declared that their major enemy is no longer the minorities nor the leftists. Their major enemy is the United States government. Of course, we know their major enemy is capitalism. They just don't know it yet. It is our job, of course it is capitalism, it's our job to help educate them so they will know. It's not the government, it's the system. The American capitalist system will elude us and let us think that the people you see up front is the one with power. What stupidity. Clinton has no power. The power is the multinational corporations that pay his campaign, to whose tune he dances. We have to organize ourselves. We have to organize ourselves so that we will not be taken the way we're taken so lightly. Most of our people are in the Democratic Party in this country. Vote Democratic. We have more Democratic mayors than any other ethnic group in this country inside the Democratic Party, and we have less power than any other ethnic group inside the Democratic Party. They hold us with nothing but contempt. You can see a clear example when we look at Cuba. Yes. Africans in this country love Cuba and love Fidel Castro. Love them. Love them. Yeah. Fidel, give the Yankees hell. Give the Yankees hell. Give the Yankees hell. You will look in Miami, and in Miami they have what are known as gusanos. Gusanos is the Spanish word for the scum of Cuba, those who ran away from the problems in Cuba to run to money in America in order to invade their country and go back. The scum of Cuba. They don't vote, yet Clinton pays more attention to them than he pays to Africans who vote him into office. Yes, we must come as a people to organize ourselves. I shed my blood for the vote, therefore the vote for me is something serious. I didn't shed my blood for the vote so that I can join and become a corrupt mayor or a corrupt this or corrupt that. My people shed their blood for the vote. Therefore I must use the vote to qualify and to bring dignity and integrity to the political system in America to ease the conditions of the poor everywhere. This is our job. We can only do this when we are organized. This aspect of organization we will not stop. We have told you it's a fact. If you look at history, I have known no great man or no great woman that didn't belong to an organization, not one. The American capitalist system will so confuse some of us that we will actually think that we by ourselves can lead the people to their freedom. There's no such thing as Rambo or Superman. It exists only in Hollywood. Fidel Castro, as bad as he is, he needs a Communist Party of Cuba to help direct Cuba. V.I. Lenin, as rough as he is, he needed a Bolshevik Party. Karl Marx was a great man, had to organize the International Working Men's Association. The Honorable Marcus Garvey saw clear and long, but he needed the Universal Negro Improvement Association of the African Community Leagues. Patrice Lumumba was a great man. He needed organization. Harriet Tubman was a rough sister. She needed organization. Rosa Parks sat down so we can get up. She needed organization. Malcolm X so loved organization that when he left the Nation of Islam, he created two organizations, the Muslim Mosque Incorporated for Muslims and the African American Organization, spotted after the Organization of African Unity. Everywhere you will see the need for organization. Martin Luther King was a righteous man. But even he recognized the need for the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. And while Nelson Mandela is known all over the world, he still has the African National Congress. Every brother or sister who truly seeks to advance the world must belong to an organization. This we will not stop telling you. We appreciate the love that you give us, we certainly do. But we want to tell you the love that you give us is a reflection of the work we do for you. And the only work we do for you is to organize you. Therefore, if you truly love us, you will be about the job of organizing the masses of our people. The scenery is clear. The scenery is absolutely clear. Look at the difference between an unorganized, sporadic urban rebellion in Los Angeles and one that is organized. Could you think about that? I want you to think seriously about it.
That we don't just jump up, we prepare Molotov cocktails, we get the highest buildings, we put snipers up there, we decide what streets we're going to burn ties and block off the police, where we will block the army off, how we will get supplies in, how we will get food in. Once we organize like this, the American capitalist system will take us seriously. Seriously. We must stop our sporadic movement and transform them to permanent organization. When you struggle against your people, you must not struggle up and down. The police do not struggle against us up and down. They struggle every single day against us, using all the technology they have to increase their oppression against us. If we are to fight against the police, we must fight every day. This is the message we want to drive home to you. You know, when you have disease like cancer and they tell you, well, you have only so much time to live, you have to decide what your priorities in life are. My priorities are always there. I'm going to serve my people until I die. There's no question here. There's no question here. We come to prioritize our work. Before we end, we want to tell you a little bit about the work of the African United Front, which Brother Ed Murphy spoke about, entitled the Black United Front. We want to give you just a brief history to show you that those who work for you do not sleep. As Brother Murphy correctly pointed out, in 1968 we organized in Washington, D.C. the first Black United Front. He was correct, but he made a mistake. Not did 2/3 of the people of the United Front go to government, practically all of them. Isn't that right, Jan Bailey? Practically all of them. Therefore, the base built from the United Front was that base that carried Marion Barry into office and carried all the others with him. Even, yes, of course, Walter Fauntleroy was a member of the United Front. Yes, he was. Of course he was. Of course he was. Yes, he was. Yes, he was. Since the United Front was broken down, the All African People's Revolutionary Party gave me the assignment of creating an African United Front in this country. This is not an easy task. It's a very difficult task. The first enemy we have standing before us is nothing other than Zionism, stark and naked. Zionism do not want us organized at all. They'll do everything to block us. They will create all sorts of confusion. They even have a new magazine they made here in Washington, D.C. in Howard University called Community Quest for Black and Jewish relationships, which is stupidity. We Africans were the ones who gave religion to the world. How could you separate black from Jewish? They're one and the same, if you understand religion. Yeah, the confusion is they want to take a religion and make a religion a nationality. They've done everything to stop us, but we've told them over and over again, you are getting weaker. And the plans you make for Mr. Arafat are bouncing off on you. They thought certainly when they made their little peace deal that Arafat would be assassinated by some extreme Palestinian terrorist. But it was Rabin who got assassinated. It was Rabin who got assassinated. And now they're split right down the middle over the question. So they're the ones who split. The Palestinians are coming together tighter. They're going to defend themselves stronger. Once they've gotten a piece of the land, you can be sure they are not going to give it up just like that. The struggle therefore increases. Zionism does everything possible to keep us divided. In 1972, after much work with the Commission of Race of the United Church of Christ, we finally got all of our people to agree to a meeting. Mr. Louis Farrakhan was to come. At that time, Roy Wilkins from the NAACP was alive. He would come. Mr. Abernathy of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. At that time, Vernon Jordan was with the Urban League. He decided to come. Ms. Dorothy Height was there. We had everything prepared, and Zionism came and destroyed that meeting. This was 1972. We are revolutionaries. Secretary tells us if the enemy is not doing anything against you, you are not doing anything. Therefore, we expect everything we do to be in contradiction with the society. They must attack it. They knocked it down. But we are revolutionaries. We don't get tired. We'll never get tired of doing our job. We continued. And by 1982, I was able to take Minister Louis Farrakhan to meet Johnny Jacobs, who was then head of the Urban League in New York. They met, sent out a letter. Both of them signed it, asking for the meeting. Everything was in place. And then Mr. Louis Farrakhan joined Jesse Jackson in the campaign for presidency. I'm sure everybody knows the history. Within a few months, they had him saying gutter religion, dirty religion, whatever they put in his mouth, and then everything was split. He and Jesse attacking him, Johnny J attacking him. Once again, Zionism came to create confusion. We have been moving very strong against Zionism to bring unity. They have come to create a literary agent here, their magazine called Common Quest, out of Howard University. We know that, like the indigenous people in this country tells us, Zionism, like capitalism, doesn't lie some of the time, it lies all of the time. All of the time. And the only time it tells the truth is when it tells a double lie. That's the only time it is. We are going to organize the African United Front. As soon as I got out of the hospital, my first task was to come to visit Mayor Marion Barry. I came to see Marion Barry. I said, my brother, you're in a position which you must serve the people now. We need this African United Front. After hosting the Million and More March, you're in a position where you can really be of service to people by calling this meeting together. Brother Marion Barry, of course, had to leave for 2 weeks, and I myself had to go to Cuba, for which we're ever grateful to the Cuban people for the great help they took care of us. Especially Brother Jose Ponce, who we tired out with so many facts and do this and do that, but the brother responded all the time, don't worry, everything is cool, we got you covered in Cuba, just go on down there. So we want to thank you. Thank you. Marion Barry just saw me this evening and told me, well, he's very sorry, he has a lot of problems, he won't be able to do it. I told him, all right, send me a letter. We're not going to stop. We're going to get an African United Front in this country. The task is trying to isolate Minister Louis Farrakhan. And the Zionists want to isolate him because of one thing. He doesn't bow down before them. As long as you bow down before them, they won't bother you at all. But once you keep your head unbent, standing up dignified in the interest of your people, they must strike you down. They cannot isolate Farrakhan from this community. They know absolutely nothing about this community. Get Jesse Jackson with all the press. Let him have a meeting. He'll never fill any stadium. Get Farrakhan without the press. He'll fill every stadium. These are just facts of life. Farrakhan has an influence upon the mass of the people because he defends the interests of the people and is not afraid of striking out at the enemies, starting with Zionism. Of an African United Front is that all the organizations working for our people be able to sit down, meet, and discuss a common program to help us mutually respect each other and work out programs for the common good of our people. Who can be against this except our enemies? Who can be against this except our enemies? The right white, on the right wing, we said, is moving to revolution. And the chances for revolution in this country are better than they were in the 1960s. In the 1960s, the right white was glued to the government. They didn't move, but today they're demanding changes. The changes they're demanding is not the same changes that we're demanding. But if the right wing is demanding changes and the left wing is demanding changes, the possibility of changes become easier. Thus at this time, we are treading a very serious path in our history. We must come to organize quickly. We must encourage the white right to keep their bullets going against the government, against the multinational corporations. We must keep telling them over and over again, the British say, to the victors belong the spoil. If you beat us, we ain't got nothing, you ain't gonna get nothing. Aim your guns at those who have power. When you whoop them, you're gonna get some power. We must direct them to the capitalist agents in this country. We must direct them to the multinational corporations in this country. We must show them precisely who their enemy is. Sister said to me, you're talking so much about these white people and you know they hate us. I said, well, that's true. Some of us had to hate them before we got to capitalism. Of course. Of course. So they're hating us is only natural. Our job is to show them we are not your enemy. And we have no power over you at all. We are at the bottom. If you want to fight and win something, let's together direct our guns against the capitalist pigs in this country and bring the system down. can only be done when the African masses are independently organized. Because we are the most revolutionary, instinctive group in this country. We burn this country at the drop of a hat. No other group does that. We shoot at the police when we want. No other group does that. We can bring the army in to try and quiet us down. No other ethnic group in the country does that. We do it. We must know precisely who we are, and what our struggle represents. We say we're the most revolutionary, instinctive people in this country. If you will look at all the fights for justice in this country, you will see us always on the front lines. Beginning the very first struggle here in this country when they had taxation without representation, the first person to get shot was an African, Crispus Attucks. Always on the front lines fighting for justice. If you will look at the movement, the labor movements in this country, we were on the front lines. As a matter of fact, when you talk about labor revolt, labor strikes, the first strike in this country was a slave revolt. That is a labor strike. It is a labor strike. If you look at the peace movement, when Snick came out in the beginning, talked about moving into resistance, as Comrade Ann Braden so precisely pointed out, that we're not going to just go. We're not going to go. We're going to break the draft. We're going to destroy the draft. If they don't have no draft, they can fight the Vietnamese, and the Vietnamese will put up anyway. Destroy the draft, and the Vietnamese going to walk over them just like they did. Just like they did. This need to organize the people is crucial. We say the Africans must independently organize themselves. Every time Africans in this country have gone into a progressive group with whites, it never fails. When the whites change the program, the Africans are at their mercy. We point out just the populist movement. The populist movement was a movement that sprang up in this country after the Civil War. A white man by the name of Tom Watson came and spoke beautiful words to us. He said, we are both fleeced by this rich white man. So us ex-slaves and us poor whites, we must get together and run them out. And we certainly did. We followed Tom Watson. And if you would look at the period which they call Reconstruction, which our brother was giving some history on, you will see clearly that at that time some of the most radical solutions, some of those radical programs were passed in this country. It was Robert Smalls, an African from South Carolina, who passed free education for everybody in this country. If you will look, they were some of the best ones. But once the white South had made its bargain with the white North, and the Hayes-Tilden Compromise came in 1787, Tom Watson, who had come and spoken to us about getting together, became leader of the Ku Klux Klan, and by lynching drove us out of the party. This time, we must be organized. Organized. It is to the benefit of the revolutionary forces in this country to have the African masses organized along revolutionary lines, because we will not go back once we're properly organized. We just go back because we're spontaneous and sporadic. But we've shown the will, the determination to fight. In the last 30 years, this country's seen over 300 urban rebellions, all of them created by us. This determination is serious. It must be organized. Africans, we must say good night. We wish you to understand seriously your responsibility to your people. I know the reason my people love me is because I take seriously my responsibility to them. I will always do that. I will never compromise my people's struggle, and there's no way they can buy me off. That's clear. I'm too old now anyway. They missed me when I was young. They're certainly not going to get me now that I'm old. Ain't nothing they can give me now. They couldn't give me nothing when I was young. The only thing I want is to see my people organized. The only thing I want is to see every African in this country, when you ask them what organization you belong to, without the slightest hesitation, they will say to you, I'm a member of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. I'm a member of the Urban League. I'm a member of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. I'm a member of the Republic of New Africa. I'm a member of the Nation of Islam. I'm a member of the All African People's Revolutionary Party. When every one of us can claim allegiance to an organization fighting for our people, I promise you, as Africa is our mother, not only will we bring this system down, but we will create for the world a system that will astonish them. We must organize. Thank you. Ready for revolution.
We ask you not to leave. We ask you not to leave. We have 3 more expressions of tribute to Kwame Ture that we want to do in the next few minutes. Number 1, we would like for the political organizations to come and pay their honor and their respect. And hopefully I beg them to forego any speeches, just to simply say who they are, pay their respect, because the revolution continues. There will be more programs like this. We will then have the Angelo Cacho dancers and drummers do an expression of tribute and honor to Kwame Ture. We will then have our sister, Nylene Foxworth, read a special poem which she has written for Kwame Ture. And then Power Praise will rock us on home to Africa, rock us on home to Mecca, rock us on home to heaven, rock us on out of here. Please stay, and we ask Kwame Ture to stay here with us to help discipline us, because we were a half hour late.
All right.
We were a half hour late, and we're now running a half hour late. So please give us about 5 or 10 more minutes. Please, can the organizations come and state their names and their small piece of tribute, and then we can move on with our brothers and sisters to dance.
Before we have organizations pay tribute, we need to pay a very special tribute to Kwame Ture. I'm hoping that everybody will sit down right where you are, and we want the folk who have the buckets, who are going to collect the money